Peace, all peace. So in today's day and age, social media has certainly and continues to provide its fair share of positives as well as negatives as far as the value it brings on the day-to-day. We often speak of and glorify the positive effects social media presents, which we'll get into later on in the video. And by the way, like, comment, and subscribe. But nonetheless, we shouldn't overlook the negative effects social media presents, as we tend to sweep them under the rug or dismiss them, claiming it just comes with the territory. There are positive and negative effects to everything, which inherently creates that balance, that yin-yang effect. And you could also search the term equivalent exchange for more context. But again, in this day and age, 2022 and moving forward, I would argue that the negatives far outweigh the positives, and that we as people have to make a concerted effort to mitigate its damage, especially to the youth. Now, obviously, taking into account recent history, things are not exactly promising, and according to how things have been trending, will only get worse in the near future and beyond. Now, mind you, initially, social media was almost experimental, coming into prominence in the mid to late 2000s and especially early 2010s. This is YouTube in 2005, 2006. Clearly looks a lot different than the YouTube of today. This is Instagram in 2010, approximately 2010. Also a big difference. Facebook in about 04, 05, before it was made public to the world and all users above 13 years old, and Twitter about 2011, 2012, when it really started to gain popularity worldwide. Again, social media was initially heavily sold like hotcakes and promoted and advertised on the premise of its positive effects. And now, with a few years, a decade plus of those effects becoming the norm now, and essentially having been immersed, implemented, and installed in our day-to-day lives and the way we do things, our routines, our habits, our general lifestyle, now the negatives are rearing its ugly head. The negatives are and have been so pronounced in the past few years that most social media apps are now trying to be the Walmart of socials, where you can essentially do everything on one platform. But nonetheless, every deadly sin or capital vice, oddly enough, has a social media app that specializes in triggering, igniting, sparking, provoking, and inciting that vice in you. I'll explain. There are 7 deadly sins, also known as cardinal sins or capital vices, and of those 7 vices, there is a social media app that strongly corresponds to or is linked to each of those. So, in my personal opinion, obviously there's a lot of overlap and they could be interchangeable. Adult entertainment, and more specifically dating apps, including the usual Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, etc., are excellent at provoking lust. Although 90+% of your interactions or your engagements on those websites or apps will never translate to reality, it's the thoughts of potential lust that keeps you attached to those habits, those apps, and so on and so forth. On a surface level, Instagram is an innocent photo sharing platform for friends, family, and even acquaintances. However, we know that comparison is the thief of joy, and on a macro, deeper level, Instagram certainly sparks envy, whether consciously or unconsciously. Keeping up with the Joneses, as well as the element of deceit, people traveling when they're really in their home city, all the makeup, the filters, the edits, the Photoshop, presenting an image or a lifestyle or brand that may or may not line up with their actual day-to-day life, and posing as picture perfect when things may be chaotic, certainly adds fuel to the fire as far as the envious aspect goes. LinkedIn is a business or employment platform that is meant for networking for both employers and hopeful applicants. It is inherently a prideful platform because you essentially have to sell yourself to the best of your abilities, highlighting your talents, skills, abilities, and accomplishments, hence the promotion of pride or ego. People often find themselves doing things just for the sake of their profile, not necessarily because they want to do things, not necessarily because it's a passion of theirs or an interest, but just to check said boxes for their profile to look a certain way to employers. Before I continue, I just wanted to give an honorable mention to one of the most, if not the most famous social media app of all time, Facebook, who now has kind of fallen off, but in its heyday, in its prime, would have definitely fit the bill for both envy and pride. Next up, we have the infamous Amazon. Amazon is a world-renowned tech company predominantly known for e-commerce. And as a good example, if you walk around the typical college or university class today, you will see easily over half of the students roaming, browsing, scrolling through Amazon, shopping digitally, and it really shows how the website in itself encourages greed and excess for people purchasing things they don't even necessarily need, but do to pass the time, keep up with trends or what's relevant, and things of that nature. Now we also have Twitter. Twitter is a platform where users are able to freely post and share thoughts and ideas under 280 characters. Obviously, in such a space, difference in opinions, for the most part, sparks a certain wrath in people in the form of derogatory language, name-calling, insults, ad hominem attacks, doxing personal information, shaming, etc., and so on and so forth, especially when it comes to sensitive topics such as religion, politics, social and economic topics, and so on and so forth. And that's never been more relevant as of late with Elon Musk's $44 billion acquisition, alongside certain changes he made effective immediately. Lastly, to cover all 7 capital vices, we have the delivery services and applications known as DoorDash and Uber Eats, as well as the most popular streaming service of them all, Netflix. Now, the reason that those two can be grouped together, in my opinion, is that they both inspire gluttony and sloth, being that they quite literally welcome laziness, unhealthy lifestyles, poor habits in decision making, just to name a few. Now, after explaining those 7 capital vices or capital sins in unison with their corresponding social media apps or platforms, if you will, lastly, to truly demonstrate this strange relationship between social media and the outright negativity it can stir up inside of us, was rapper Takeoff from the group Migos. Takeoff was shot and killed November 1st, and those in vicinity of the tragedy decided to film and record the situation instead of finding safety for themselves and those around them, or finding a solution to potentially help out Takeoff prior to his unfortunate demise. And after recording moments of that extremely chaotic situation, of course, it was posted all over social media. One could definitely say for clicks, for attention, for clout, for traffic, likes, comments, etc. And it shows how far we've really gone and how our priorities are all out of sorts. Even in situations as severe as death, elements of the 7 capital virtues could not arise in place of the negativity and the darkness of the 7 capital vices. So remember, people, to do your own research and prioritize doing things you love, your passions, being with the people you love, and pursuing knowledge and information, and actually spending time in real life doing real things will always be better than wasting time on social media. So stay safe. See you soon. Bless.